is on and it looks like hot day, and the winter blues is on.
Welcome to the latest edition of the Cranky Curmudgeon's Corner. My name is Paul Thomas, and this evening we are going to be discussing the presidential horse race. With us tonight, Pat Chesbrough, Thaddeus Paulhamus, and Daniel Thomas. Welcome, panel. The overall recent behavior of the Republican Party is an amusing story in terms of the upcoming election. The Ukrainian army is retreating because they are running out of bullets. Speaker Johnson said that no aid goes to Ukraine unless border security is funded. The Senate passed a border security bill, which gave the Republicans everything they asked for. But since Trump needs immigration to be his main campaign issue, he won't permit Johnson to put either the border security or the Ukraine aid package on the floor for a vote. I guess just today, Johnson decided he was going to separate Taiwan and Israel and Ukraine into three separate bills, but we'll see how that plays out. Adding to this already ridiculous shit show is MTG's motion to vacate the speaker's chair because Johnson had the audacity to prevent a government shutdown by allowing a vote to fund the government minutes after the deadline expired. Is this effort by the Republican House to capitulate to Trump's whim to assist Putin's invasion of a foreign nation, along with his declaration to forbid solving the immigration problem Trump most wants to talk about, being covered sufficiently by the media so the average American voter can fully understand what is going on? Thaddeus, before I give that over to you, I'm going to tell you a little story about what I had with my brother-in-law's girlfriend, who was supporting Trump, and she said that she liked Trump because she thought that he's ready to stop the illegals from coming into America, and she didn't like the illegals coming from America. So I just explained to her in what terms I could, so it was understandable, about the vote that the Senate passed, the immigration bill, or the border security bill, and that Trump stopped it from happening because he needed the talking point. And at the conclusion of my explanation to her, she said, well, you know what? I really don't know enough about that. So what I think I'm not going to do is I'm not going to vote for anybody because I don't like Biden and I do like Trump. But if what you're saying is true, then that's not good. So there's a person who doesn't really pay much attention to the media, but we were sitting there and, you know, just the two of us was able to have this little talk. And that's the conclusion she came to. So I counted that as a win for Biden because she might have been voting for Trump otherwise. So what about the Republicans and their assistance to Trump's campaign with the way they're behaving in Congress?
Well, you started out with this question by saying that the overall recent behavior of the Republican Party is an amusing story. And I can't help but think that it would be more amusing to me if there weren't consequences.
Good point. Good point.
But, it is, it's become scandalously clear that the Republican Party it's not just the party of Trump, it is the party whose king is Trump. They do whatever he wants, whether it's good for the party or not, whether it's good for the United States or not, whether it's good for the rest of the world or not. They only single-mindedly are doing what Donald Trump wants them to do. If he does not ultimately become the king of America, their whole organization is lost. It just disintegrates because they have nothing to hang on to but this bully.
Dan, Thaddeus says that the Republicans will disintegrate if Trump doesn't become king. Do you see it that way?
Uh, I think Trump is a symptom and a particularly dangerous one, but he's not the underlying disease. I think this has been festering for a long time, and Trump just made it okay to say the racist, sexist, homophobic part out loud. And I do think that a lot of people are going to continue to behave like him. Like Ron DeSantis really did think he was the heir apparent to this. He was definitely ready to pick up where Donald Trump left off. And as soon as it became clear that he was not, why would I pick diet if I could have the regular? And so Ron DeSantis is gone for now, but he'll be back. And while just linear time will eventually get rid of Trump for us, there's still the true believers, the Marjorie Taylor Greens, the Ron DeSantises, the Matt Gaetzes, who are much, much younger and ready to take over. They're all going to be around. Now, I don't think the media does a very good job of covering how this stuff works at all. I don't think the average American is paying attention in the same way. Like there, your brother-in-law's girlfriend is not the only one who doesn't know that Trump tanked the immigration bill that a Republican senator wrote, like an extremely conservative Republican senator, that the kind of immigration bill that made most Democrats say, "What are you doing here? This is really bad. We don't ever want to do this." But it was on the table. They tanked it. It might be for the best that they did, but it's I don't think the average person is tuned in enough to know this. You have to explicitly tell them over and over and over again for the information to stick, and it's not.
Pat, I had to do a lot of explaining to my brother-in-law's girlfriend, and I had to like get down on her level in order to get her to understand. And but I had the time to do that. I don't know if we really have the kind of time or the patience or the forum, the environment in which to do that. But this shit show of the Republican Party is, pretty obvious. But do the Americans see it? Is the media covering it enough?
They are the worst governor. They cannot govern. They cannot even get along with each other, say nothing about govern. They talk about their own policies. They don't have any. They have the policy of destruction, the policy of manipulation, the policy of bullying. And that is the bottom line here. It's not just in Washington, D.C. It's certainly in Alaska, I'll tell you. The same kind of incompetence, not doing their job. And this is the thing that's most frightening or whatever to me. Biden is actually doing the job. Trump never did the job. He never did the job. Biden's doing the job. People don't know anymore what the job is even for the Congress to do. They just think, I guess you're supposed to go there, get your money and fight and go on, go home and talk about how wonderful you are. I mean, they're incompetent. Let's start talking about them they have not passed anything, much of anything in this whole time that they've been there. They can't even have a speaker that they can agree on. Now they're trying to get rid of this one because they're incompetent. I wish we'd just use that word with them.
And the media is not using that word. Is basically what you're saying. The coverage is not there. Okay. Can you explain why Hunter Biden is in the news all the time and Jared Kushner is hardly ever mentioned, Pat? I guess Hunter hasn't been in them that much lately. Once his trial was set up, but no one ever talks about Jared Kushner. And if you
No,
look at
well, drugs are bad. Anybody who uses drug is a bad person. So that's part of the deal with Hunter Biden, I think. And then this whole made up thing about his laptop that everybody, oh yeah, he's got all this stuff. And then, all the stuff that they keep asserting that is never true. And I don't know why nobody talks about Jared Kushner, because he's benefited greatly from his relationship. Remember when they would not, the secrets, or whoever was doing the security clearances wouldn't clear Jared Kushner to be in the White House, and Trump overruled them. So nobody remembers that kind of stuff. And it's hard for me to explain why these kinds of things happen, but except for, drugs are good. If you're a druggie, you're bad for life. It's one of those many things. So.
Well, my view is that the sensationalism of the Hunter Biden thing is more to the appetite of the way the media is. All these complaints about the liberal media, I think it's nonsense. Thaddeus, is that the case? Do you see it, or how does that read with you?
Well, it it's again, what party are you in and what family are you in? When people don't go after Hunter Biden, they know that his father-in-law is going to have a tantrum and is going to hurt you. That's the threat. It's a constant. If Donald
I
Trump,
think you meant Jared Kushner.
no,
You
I
said,
mean, if I'm talking about Donald Trump will threaten people with harm if they do anything to Jared Kushner.
correct. Okay.
That's
Right.
that's the whole point. Um, and the Hunter Biden thing is part of an ongoing thing that started in the 1970s when uh, Nixon gave up his office rather than go to jail. And the Republican Party has been on the warpath to impeach somebody ever since. And they go after Joe Biden, and no matter how hard they nitpick Joe Biden, they can't find any crimes. So Hunter Biden did some things that might have been kind of shady business. So let's see if we can tar the president with his son's actions. And while they're doing it, since they pretty much control what people in the media say, they can keep Hunter Biden in front of the news month after month. And of course, nobody's going to touch Jared Kushner and his $2 billion gift from the Saudis, you know.
Dan, is this just more or less a House Republican effort to keep Hunter Biden in the news, or does the media bear more responsibility for that? This?
Okay, so I think we've got several factors at play here.
Okay.
Factor one with Jared, and I'm not disagreeing with anything else that's previously been said. Financial crimes and corruption like that are boring. They do not make for an interesting narrative that you can follow in the length of a TikTok video. But Hunter getting jobs that he probably wasn't qualified for and probably didn't know how to do because of his last name. People can understand that. We have all dealt with a Nepo baby somewhere taking spots that we were probably going to be better at. So that's more relatable to people. Explaining Jared's bribery is more complicated. It takes longer. The average person doesn't have the attention span, and the media the media has to be able to explain it in 15 seconds or it's not getting explained. Following that, We do have Marjorie Taylor Greene, who does seem to be, I'm just going to say, sexually obsessed with Hunter Biden. She carries around his sex tapes. She has naked pictures of him blown up all the time. She keeps introducing this stuff into the congressional record. So, yeah, I think that there's definitely something going on there. That she's got a personal attraction to him that she's just not comfortable admitting. And this is how she's choosing to express it. I'm sure a therapist would have a lot to unpack about it, but she is pretty single-handedly keeping him in the news. Um, then he's also got an active criminal trial going on for crimes that he really definitely did commit. That you'll notice his father is not doing anything to protect him from, because his father does actually believe in the rule of law. And Hunter is a screw up who definitely did a bunch of crimes, whether they were, whether he was in his right mind, whether it's because of his addiction issues, whatever the reason for them, he definitely did them. And it's to be decided whether or not he's going to face accountability for it. But he is being pursued and prosecuted. Whereas Jared, if there is going to be a criminal prosecution, it hasn't happened yet. He does not have a trial date or a judge involved or a plea deal fall apart. Jared didn't try to illegally buy a gun. Jared didn't, that we know of, dodge a bunch of taxes. So Jared is definitely the more corrupt and dangerous of the two. Hunter is sloppier about all of it. So Hunter is more visible to see. Um, and that's why he's in the news. Like, I think Chelsea Clinton's pretty smart. She could be committing all sorts of crimes right now, but if she's doing it quietly, subtly in the background, no one's going to know.
Well, regarding Hunter Biden's alleged crime of signing a paper saying he wasn't a drug addict in order to get a gun that he had to give back, his girlfriend made him give back within a couple of weeks. Heidi Heidkamp was on a podcast I listened to the other day, and she said just the people in my state who have drug offenses and DUIs who all have carry permits. If they would prosecute them, they all signed papers that allow them to have guns too, but there's no prosecution of them. They're claiming that Hunter Biden got a job that he wasn't qualified for. Well, he got arrested for something that a lot of other people do all the time. They don't get arrested for. So that's all I'll quit ranting about that. We already talked about this question a little bit about the State of the Union address regard to Biden. But what is your analysis of the news coverage on both his performance and the Republican response? Dan, I know that you're a big Katie Britt fan, so you want to tell me what you think about how she responded to? Did you see the Saturday Night Live take on?
With Scarlett Johansson, yes, it was perfect.
It was beautiful.
So my Katie Britt analysis is I'm going to follow line with all of the other pundits, and I'm not going to say I'm a pundit. I'm just observing this pattern that's come to be true. You always pick a rising star in your party to give the response to the State of the Union address. And I think it's because you want to kill them and prevent their star from rising anymore and just getting rid of them. Because like the last five on both sides, like there was a Kennedy boy who did one to Trump's. Bobby Jindal is nowhere to be found. Katie Britt, her choice of wardrobe, like I'm cosplaying as one of the wives from Handmaid's Tale, like that's subtle, and I think she's trying to tell the Republican women where they'll be in the new organization. You won't be able to read, but you'll get to wear a pretty green dress with her big expensive diamond cross in that kitchen that you can tell has a cleaning staff of 4 just to keep it that nice. Like, yeah, no, utterly disingenuous. Why she spoke with that fucked up cadence, like what That made no sense to me. Like weirdly seductive, and then low and breathy voices. Like, what are you talking about? You knew the points that he was going to make during the State of the Union, and at no point did she ever say he is wrong about this. Instead, she told a story about someone in Mexico who was trafficked by a Mexican drug cartel to another
Okay.
town in Mexico during George Bush's administration. Like, and before we banned TikTok, it was a TikToker who uncovered that and figured it out and told the world what a piece of shit she is. So I think we should definitely keep that in mind. But yeah, no, it's the State of the Union, I think, really helped Joe Biden. It especially helped when you watched poor Mike Johnson sit back there and squirm. Like, if I don't clap, I'm cheering the destruction of my country, and I probably shouldn't do that. But if I clap, I'm admitting that Joe Biden is right, and I can't do that. You're just watching his brain short circuit in real time was great. And that in and of itself made the State of the Union worth it for me.
Yeah, that was pretty enjoyable. Okay, Pat, what did you think about Katie Britt's performance?
Well, I honestly didn't watch it. I have heard, as Daniel said, I've heard a lot of people talk about how much of a setup it was, and what in the world were they doing setting her up to do that. And I can't, they must have coached her. I mean, I don't think she did it on her own. I think all of that was just, I'm a woman who is for Trump. I'm against Biden. I'm a Christian. I'm a good woman. I'm a good mother. I'm your whatever boring person. And wouldn't it be nice if somebody actually said something besides banal stuff and said, "Hey, this makes no sense," or "This does make sense," or whatever. But anyway, it's too bad that they can't actually address it in a responsible way, I guess.
Oh, it was way more dramatic than that. I mean, her mother was a dance teacher. And so I think that's where she got all her performing. She wanted to get all her performing arts out. She definitely thought that she needed to be theatrical. So what did you see, Thaddeus, from Katie Britt's performance?
Aside from the theatrical smarm of it all, uh, she, and I guess this isn't really that different from a lot of other responses that we've seen to states of the union. Um, I was under the impression that the person who is going to give the response gets a copy of the speech ahead of time so they can actually respond to the speech. I didn't hear much of what she said as actually addressing what the president said in the speech that we had all just listened to, or whether she had actually listened to it. She probably didn't listen to it because she was rehearsing her lines at the last minute for her own performance.
And I don't think she read it either. There
Well,
was no.
she gave no indication that she had any idea what he said. So
Right.
you're probably right.
Last question. Oh, go ahead, Pat. You want to say something?
No, is not this the way they want us to think about women, as being incompetent and mindless and whatever?
But with a big crucifix around their neck, made of diamonds.
Either the wives of the ministers in Gilead or the Stepford wives, one or the other, or a combination of both. The most annoying thing to me about the horse race coverage is the fact that while Trump and Biden already won enough delegates to become their party's presumptive nominee, the networks are still giving prime time hours on each primary election, with most of the time devoted to Steve Kornacki's big board analysis of what is happening in individual counties. Supplementing that are all the primetime anchors sitting around a long desk telling us what all this means. Personally, if I'm not supplanted by that day's episode of General Hospital, I'm back to Perry Mason reruns. What do you watch on TV on primary election nights, Thaddeus?
Uh,
Anything good?
on primary election nights, I fire up the record player and listen to Beethoven.
Oh, okay. Good choice.
I like Steve Kornacki. I support family, uh, and he seems like he is a nice guy. And on election night, he can be very amusing because he is way too high energy. But that's the only night of the year that I have any intention of listening to him for 5 minutes because it just drives me crazy hearing about the results in some county somewhere that I never heard of before and will never hear of again. So it's just absurd. And knowing, as you said, we already know who the nominees are going to be. It's going to be Geezer versus Geezer this fall. Uh, so yeah, it's a good time to watch something else, and I recommend Beethoven.
Okay, Pat, Thaddeus likes Beethoven. Do you watch TV on primary election nights? And if
I
so,
don't
what do
ever
you
watch.
watch?
I really don't ever watch live TV. I just the next day I look it up and find out what happened. I don't really, obviously we know what's going to happen. It's not a horse race in this case. And, you know, we just did our caucuses last weekend and all we needed was one vote to ensure that Biden was the nominee and came from my very red district. So, it's
So Trump's
I
going to
don't want
win. Trump's going to win your state, and it's 3 electoral votes, or how many electoral votes you have up there, right?
probably.
Yeah. Okay. All right, Dan. Do you watch primary election night coverage, or do
I
you
don't,
just
I don't
stream
watch
stuff?
any election night coverage. I don't have live TV, so I would have to go somewhere to seek that out. And that means leaving my house and interacting with other humans in a contentious manner. So I don't do that. I stream everything. So
Yeah, me
if I
too.
really want to, I can go to YouTube and watch it. But I vote by mail now, and mail-in ballots don't get counted until after election day. So it's unless there's an overwhelming victory that I'll get an alert on my phone about, then the results won't be known for a couple days after anyway. So there's really not a point. So I'm not going to bother getting myself worked up. So if you ever have a close election, there's really not a point anymore after 2020, and we learned how easy mail-in voting was. I'm never going to a polling place again. Why would I waste my time when I can sit down at my house and mail it out? And a lot of other people feel that way. So if the election's on Tuesday, Friday, I'd like to watch the local news and then I'll find out what happened if nothing decisive comes in beforehand. But yeah, there's no point to watching local for me or watching live election coverage for me.
I think in 2020 it took like 3 days for them to get Biden to as declared the winner, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, 3 days. Yeah.
I believe he was declared on Friday and the election was Tuesday.
Yeah.
So
Right.
yeah, it takes time when there's a lot of mail in. And now that I think the majority of Democrats do vote by mail now. And like we liked this system. So we go with it.
Yeah, I vote by mail.
I think before Trump tried in 2020 to make it a point of pride to go and vote in person. That up until that point, I think everybody liked voting by mail, but then Trump decided that that was dangerous to him, and it was because he obviously lost by a lot. So then suddenly Republicans wanted to take their guns to polling places and whatever, but I'll just continue to vote by mail and not have to deal with it. I actually got a call from my election office today because I forgot to date my primary ballot, so I have to go in tomorrow to date it, and otherwise it won't count. So I like that aspect of voting by mail.
Well, that's a ridiculous law, having to date your envelope, because you have
It is.
a date stamp from the post office. But that's
Well, it didn't. I dropped it off in at the courthouse when I was running past it, so there is no stamp involved.
Oh, okay. So you screwed up then.
Yes. Well,
Yeah.
they still would have made me do this if I had sent it in by mail.
Right. That's what. Yeah, that was my point.
Easy fix.
Okay. Yeah. Thaddeus, Pat, Dan, thanks so much. Great discussion. And all you out there in Cyberland, thanks for listening. And if you want to check out how to find this and all the other broadcasts of the Cranky Curmudgeon's Corner, go to Paul Tom THOM on YouTube, and you can find us there. So thanks for listening, and see you next time. Bye now.